What a brilliant opening episode. Congratulations to you all. I mean, it's fantastic. Stephen, Series 2 continues to draw from Ben Macintyre's brilliant book of the same name. Mm-hmm. Can you just kind of talk us through the period this is going to cover and your ambition for this series?
It's the sort of the second phase of what the SAS did and what they achieved, which was pretty much to be the spearhead in Italy, starting in Sicily as we saw, but taking it up to. It's great. It's not a spoiler to say what happens at the end because we know, because we won basically, and so this covers Italy, and it ends when they reach the border with France, basically.
And I love at the beginning when it said inspired by true events, but this is not a history lesson. Can you talk a bit about that and the fact that, obviously you are being respectful of the events, but also you do have creative freedom and creative license in the process?
It's mostly putting things in a different chronological order, actually. But also what it is most often the thing that really happened is so weird and so bizarre. This is true, that you think, well, the audience either wouldn't go with it or they would lose empathy with the character. And so you have to draw. I mean, the example I would give in Series 1 is we see David Stirling throw a fake hand grenade onto a snooker table in order to get the table. The reality was it was a real hand grenade. And you just think nobody would believe that. But I mean, so that's the thing. It's sort of almost like contracting the reality.
Mm. And Karen, this time round, before we were in Morocco in the desert, now we're, I believe, in Croatia, which is standing in for Italy. How was it to film in Italy, and were there any challenges with that? Sorry, in Croatia, yeah.
It was great. I mean, in all honesty, I think we were slightly worried about going into season 2 without the benefit of the desert and the scale and the beauty and the character that provided. And when we set out to find what our new world of war would look like, it was really important that we encountered civilians and we encountered real life. And I think working in Croatia was, across the board, a really positive experience. It absolutely delivered on what we needed. And I think we're all in agreement, having all talked about it, that we absolutely still get the scale. It's just a completely different look and feel of the place.
Yeah, absolutely. Did Jack, Connor, Sophia, did you miss the desert heat?
I'm just going to say, that's the first time I've seen that. Fucking hell.
Yeah, right? There's your review.
Fucking hell. I've never seen it before. I was sensational in it.
And modest.
It was amazing. Your question about the desert, I mean, the desert was unbelievable. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life, and I was very fortunate that, unfortunate perhaps, that I didn't get to go to Croatia with my filming this time, and these guys had an amazing time, but not bitter about it. So these guys can talk more about that, but getting out of the desert in the first season was a relief, absolutely.
And how about you guys? What was it like in Croatia? I imagine the downtime as well, because you have long days, but downtime must have been rewarding.
I was hoping it'd feel like a holiday compared to Morocco, but no, it was as hot sometimes, wasn't it? And it was tough. It's a demanding schedule, and it's got to be, hasn't it? But beautiful. And we're in the part of Croatia that used to be Italy. So we're using a lot of towns that were Venetian built. It was amazing, an amazing experience.
I miss the sandstorms.
Yeah.
And the occasional crunchy food that comes with the sand.
Not the scorpions though, or the snakes.
Oh, that too.
Connor, we should say, obviously we just got a glimpse at you at the end of the first episode. We should reassure everyone that he is in the full series, and we will be following, otherwise this will be weird, but we follow David's journey in the prisoner of war camp in northern Italy. Can you talk, I know we can't give away too much, but can you talk a little bit about his story? And given his character, we know he's not going to take this lying down, and he's going to be frustrated that he's not joining his SAS boys on the front line.
Yeah, I think you've put it exactly right. It was easy enough to act that sort of frustration, as again, I wasn't in Croatia. But I was absolutely delighted to come back. I was only ever meant to do the first season, so when Stephen Knight delivered episode 1, and there I was, page 59, and I got a call from the wonderful Stephen Smallwood asking what I was doing in the summer, I was truly delighted. We followed David through and his frustration and his need for attention. So yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but it's exactly what you said, and yeah.
My next question was, did you get FOMO too? But I think we've kind of covered that now. Jack, this series, Paddy assumes, control of the unit, which is going to be interesting because he both hates authority and is somewhat of a hothead, shall we say. Can you tell us a bit about his approach to leadership and his mental state this series?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he's admittedly, he's not great in the leadership role. I think he can lead by example, and I think that's true to a lot of the accounts of him. When it came to actually being in there and in and amongst it, a great one to have around. All the other shit perhaps was way off the mark with, by which I mean like the bureaucracy and whatever else. So yeah, we leave season 1. He's been put in the sort of leadership role of the SAS, only to find that going to season 2 and another fucking Stirling is above him. So yeah, and I don't know. It's quite amusing. It's quite a humorous sort of set of circumstances that he's in again, and but yeah.
Was it nice to be central to the action this season? Because he really obviously is front and centre of it, leading the.
Yeah. Oh yeah. God. Yeah. Oh yeah. No stunt doubles.
Wow.
We do our own stunts on this gig, and 2 for 1.
And everyone was safe, as you can see. So they're all
still here, aren't we?
yeah.
Yeah. Did me no harm.
David was a great foil for him, right? Because they obviously locked horns, and they had that brilliant competition between them. But he respected him. That's the crucial thing. And as you say, we've got another Stirling brother here who there's no love lost.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about the dynamic between Paddy and Bill?
I think much like with David Stirling, there's a gauntlet that gets laid, and he's not going to assume this respect just based on an authoritative figure. Paddy is a man of war, and respect, and it's wonderfully put in one of the first scenes. Is chopped down no trees, fed no fires, picked up no fucking axe. That's what it's going to take for somebody to be respected or respectable in Paddy's view. Plus, they're in the theatre of war, aren't they? So yeah, just to nab one of your quotes, Stephen. Like I think with Paddy, these lads, a lot of them are the kind of people there's probably no place for in society during peace times. Whereas when it kicks off,
You want them.
the type of fellas you want quite close.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. Gwynn, welcome. Welcome. Bill has an incredibly hard, job on his hands. First stepping into the shoes of David and also trying to control these wild dog SAS boys. Can you talk a bit about how his approach is to that and and how he handles Paddy and how he's going to try and rein them in?
I suppose he's the older sibling, and from a young age, from like the age of 20, he was the Laird of Keir, right? He was this landed gentry, head of the family. He was used to responsibility, maybe in a way that his younger brother wasn't. And he recognises that he's got, the knives are out for the SAS at the beginning of this season, and he recognises that they've got to toe the line a little bit for a period of time in order for them to survive. But at the same time, he's not a total company man. He is a firm believer in commando warfare. He's a firm believer in these kind of renegade soldiers, and it's just a matter of harnessing their kind of talents and their warrior kind of skill, I suppose. yeah, I think Dudley Clark says it. I've noticed it when I watched it this time round, that he says he's like the headmaster in the school office, and I feel like Bill recognised that's his role really. He's got to be the authority figure that they can all kind of bash heads against, and the figure for their frustrations when they have got to comply to like a greater kind of organisation. Like there's, American and European forces landing and invading France, so they've got to fit into a huge organisation, and he's the kind of figurehead of that. And I think he's quite happy to be that as well. He's, I'd like to see him go click or snap or whatever it was. I think he can.
Give him time.
He can handle himself. I think.
Yeah.
Paddy doesn't recognise him.
He's going to learn. There's also that natural division, isn't there, between the original members and the new recruits. Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I felt to your question about being in Croatia compared to the desert. I think we all felt quite sheepish that we didn't have to cut our teeth in 40-degree heat and sandstorms and all that kind of stuff.
50, really.
And we just so sorry. We just kind of rock up in the nice kind of like Croatian seaside resort and go to the casino in the evening and have a lovely time.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it was actually really lovely.
You'll have to recreate it here just for you to like be part of it.
I think a lot of us actors were kind of experiencing the kind of frustrations or whatever the emotions of our characters at many times. So there was the FOMO obviously for Connor, I'm afraid, but there was also the kind of, I felt very frustrated and impotent at not being able to be a part of the action. Bill only ever turns up when the dust has settled and the last shot has been fired. And all I wanted to do was, fire some guns and set off some explosions. So there was a lot of that going on, yeah.
I'm sure you got a warm welcome. I wondered if there was some kind of initiation. Was it rum-based? What happened? Anything? Or anything you can talk about here in this room? You're looking at Jack.
Yeah. My first scene was that scene in the tent there. And that was
wow.
my first interaction with the originals. And so, yeah, it was all being played out in real time. Like there was real anxiety and pressure, but then also like the need to kind of, assert myself, I suppose. But it's an amazing bunch of people. Like it's a wonderful cast that, there's some real alpha figures in that cast because that's the nature of the story. They're, big, powerful warriors. And yet they're all very lovely, warm, beautiful, sensitive.
We're a right fluffy bunch in reality.
A bunch of actors.
I was at a Christmas Carol last week. And There was so many Rogue Heroes there. We're such a fluffy bunch in reality.
Yeah. That's it. We're all a bunch of loves, really.
Don't dispel the reputation.
Yeah.
A reason to crack open the rum is that Eve is alive. We weren't sure at the end of last series, but she is. Can you tell us, Sophia, a bit about her story and because she's going to get more involved, isn't she, this series?
Yeah.
Can you tell us?
She's getting closer to the front line, and she's been given permission. She deserves a beret, probably. But she continues to be relentless and push for the information that she needs and to get the help that she needs for the Free French so that they can train. And she's getting closer.
And now she has to negotiate with two Stirling brothers. So
Yeah.
what's that like?
That's I don't think it's as confusing for her than it is for Bill. I'm not going to speak for you, but she will, continue to use what she can in order to get what she needs. That's what spies do. But back in the days, that's what they did. They used their femininity and their charm because men thought that if they were that they were not a threat, basically. And
Underestimated.
yeah, absolutely. But I think that for Bill, it's all those hands, that you see in some of the cuts. But yeah.
Yeah, Gwilym, how does he deal with that?
So-
How does he deal with having Eve there?
Oh yeah, she's persistent. She doesn't really give up. I mean, I don't want to give too much away, really, but there's some fun kind of like sibling competitiveness that at play there as well, and I think he's quite enjoying being part of the action while his brother is
Out of action.
there's maybe a little bit of fun.
And I want to say about Eve is just like, as much as she's not, she's a fictional character. She's not a real life like everybody is here. Is a real life character, but she really truly represents all these women that were part of the SOE and that deserve to be seen and talked about. And they were such a big part of the liberation of France, Germany, part of the Second World War. And I think it's important to acknowledge them. There are so many of them. Virginia Hall and yeah.
Stephen, was that important for you to?
Yeah, I mean, the character of Eve is a sort of a mixture of a few real characters, but even more, as you say, is emblematic of the absolutely extraordinary courage of people, French, British, women who were, and this is across the board with all of the characters when you read the history, they're all in their early 20s, they're my kids.
Wow.
And they just did this stuff, and they would fly, they would fly behind enemy lines, pretty much knowing they were going to die. And they did it anyway. And it's just amazing. And I think fortunately, all of our actors know and feel the responsibility to do justice to the real people. And I think Eve, in particular, it has got this sort of incredible responsibility because so much of this stuff was pivotal. So much of the things that the women, especially of the SOE, did is amazing. And it doesn't really get told, actually, properly.
But you're paying homage now, which is...
Yeah, I mean, doing our bit, as you say.
Yeah. Connor, Eve is like David's only weak spot, I'd say. How is he going to handle the fact that Bill and Eve are having to work closely?
He's probably not going to handle it well, I reckon. I don't want to say too much, but yeah, I think that will probably be a driving force for his need to get out of where he is.
Because a lot of the fans of the show are very invested in this relationship. Can you, we don't want to ruin anything, but the embers are still burning for him, aren't they? He's still, even though he's there, he still writes and...
100%, yeah, absolutely. He is... his heart has been gripped, you might say. Yes.
This is on telly.
You've missed all this, haven't you, Jack? You missed all this with Connor.
I mean, let me just say, Jack is absolutely phenomenal in this.
Absolutely.
In that scene in the Palm Court Hotel, I was like,
Yeah.
he's unbelievable. He deserves it. He's
You made him
amazing.
blush, but it's true. I was going to say, actually, talking of that scene, there's so much, how did you find there's so many explosions, a lot more fight, it's very active. How did you enjoy those scenes, Jack?
Not much, to be honest, because I'm no spring chicken anymore, so I have to book my physio in advance. They were good fun once, but it's a good bunch on this. It's a real good bunch. And seeing so many crew in the audience as well, and I just think they deserve a hand. Because this show really does punch above its weight enormously, and if it's not for the genius of everyone involved right the way throughout, it wouldn't be half as good. So, yeah.
Credit where credit's due. We've got to talk about the boat scenes, Karen. They were devastating but extraordinary in terms of, scenic. Can you talk a bit about how you did those scenes and?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here trying to look for Stephen Wolfenden because I know he's here somewhere.
Yes.
Hang on. How did he get out of this bit?
I don't know how he got out.
I mean, there is a seat free. I mean,
Yeah, Wolfie, man.
You can, Wolfie, we've got a triumvirate of amazing Steves on this show. Steve Knight, Stephen Smallwood, Stephen Wolfenden, so everyone's got a nickname apart from Steve. So Wolfie, as we know him, was completely diligent in his approach to how we shot that. And I think it is testament, because that was all shot in a tank in near Watford. And we were there, and I went to see them, and I was like, why are we shooting the stuff inside the boat where we can't see the water? You know, why are we doing that here? And it was all about getting the performance that we needed out of the actors. We needed them in that boat, feeling it with, you know, extras in the water, screaming as they were. And, you know, the boat was built by our amazing art department. It was all just about showing how it felt to be those people in the boats that had to ignore the British voices that were screaming to be helped, and doing that all for real in the water in a landing craft, I think is why we feel how we're supposed to feel. But it's down to Wolfie and the amazing team that we managed to shoot that in the way that we did over 2 nights. I mean,
Wow.
And there was other stuff that we shot on that tank in those 2 nights, I believe. So it was a really, really well put together schedule with amazing performances and everyone knowing that we needed to get it.
It's exceptional, and again, a testament to the team effort, right?
Yeah.
Because so much goes into that. Jack, that line, we won't jeopardise the liberation of Europe for acts of mercy. It's horrifying, isn't it? Just, I mean...
In a Northern Irish accent. Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't do it justice there, sorry.
yeah, I suppose, yeah. No, but I mean, this man,
Yeah,
you know.
extraordinary.
And routinely we get script after script that is just, it's a pleasure and delight to do. So, you know, when we are in water tanks, night 3, take flipping 20 odd, you know, there's still some joy to be had most of the time.
There's also a lot of humour in it, isn't it? I mean, the audience was laughing throughout, you know, that you expertly combine both. Stephen, this series focuses more on what we'd call in modern day terms PTSD of the soldiers. Was that important for you, that you wanted to convey this series?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to look at the way it was dealt with at the time and by the soldiers at the time differently, where the best bit of research I did was to meet Mike Sadler, who was one of the originals, and he was 99 years old, and and he was very lucid, and he was just talking about I was saying, what was it like, and he said, well, you know, one particular thing, he said, we were attacking the Italian line, and they opened up with mortars and machine guns and cannon fire. It wasn't ideal. You know, and that was the thing, and I just thought, that's the thing that we got to try and get, is that he wasn't like, we were terrified. It wasn't that. He was just keeping the lid on everything. And what I wanted to do was to, with all the characters, with the extreme stuff they're going through, they are going through it, but they're not going to talk about it. They're not going to give it up. They're not going to discuss it. And it's then trying to find a way without words to see, and you will see, I think, some extraordinary stuff that's to come, where what we've seen in episode 1 pays off, and then some, and then more. And it's all based on true events in Italy, where, you know, these boys of the SAS went through absolute hell, and then carried on, and then just carried on doing it. And I think part of the lid is humour. You know, part of it is making a joke of it, or not even making a joke, but just saying something in a particular. Yeah, of course, yeah, and you know, I just think it's a gift as a writer. It's such a gift to you to be able to say, here's the big thing, here's the big explosion, here's the big drama, here's the fun part. You know,
Yeah.
It's great.
Absolutely.
It's sort of almost like cheating.
Yeah. Karen, can you, upcoming episodes, can you tease what we've got to look forward to? I mean, we don't want to give too much away, but we also want to wet the audience's appetite.
Well, I think to your point about the PTSD,
Yeah.
that we do push one of our characters in particular into a really dark place, with Steve absolutely using the true story of something that someone went through internally, and Termally is a place where, you know, you will know from Ben Macintyre's book that many SAS were killed, and so it's no plot spoiler, as Steve says, to say that we are going to cover that. So we are seeing more personal cost, I think, to the people this time than we did before, but still with the swagger and sass and friendship and fun of the first series, but sort of like, I think just going more deeply into character than we had the luxury of doing on season 1. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And finally,
I agreed with
Stephen, this doesn't end, you said, at the end of the war. Given the opportunity, and I know I'm just being greedy because we're only just talking about series 2, but if you were given the opportunity for another series to conclude the story, would you be keen?
Not one series, no.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah, go on. 2, 3.
No, we want to take this to the end of the war and just a bit beyond.
Yeah, brilliant. Well,
yeah, the firefight on top of the cliffs of the Capo Moro de Poco was in Hertfordshire, which you will have seen on Deadpool. There's a big sequence they shot on Deadpool there. It's very chalky white cliffs, and I was lucky enough to be sent in pre-production to the actual cliffs. And you had it easy compared to the real ones. I mean, it was solid, chalk, hard cliffs, and they practiced for weeks and weeks and weeks to in the Lebanon, I think. That they practiced getting up the cliffs and abseiling up and climbing up. So we used Hertfordshire. We had 3 nights. It rained on one of the nights really, really badly, and it was caked full of clay. And Jack said he actually weighed twice his normal weight just for the clay on his boots, and they had to run. And a lot of the stuff that you see is real. So we were laying explosives, we were laying mortar rounds, we were doing effects with grenades. I just finished a job in Canada where, after various things that happened with guns on set in America and Canada, they had stopped using any blanks. But everything we do in SAS, very safely, we use blanks. And as a director, it's so important because you can just feel those performances ignite with those guns firing back at them and cases flying everywhere. So, the real thing that we were encouraged and allowed to do here was put the cast in amongst the flames, in amongst the fire, work them hard on long nights, and it paid off.
it definitely paid off. Right, Jack? Yeah.
Hey, listen, we do have it comparatively very easy, but you could say that right the way through this show, couldn't you? But it puts it into perspective, and you can never whinge. When it gets tough, you do have to sort of suck it up in our trailers. And go home to our hotels and get a 12-hour turnaround. The notion of a 12-hour turnaround for these lads would just be laughable. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
But the experience for me as the director was hugely positive and enjoyable. One of my best filming experiences. We shot 6 hours of action-packed, emotional-packed television in 81 days. With a second unit, Adrian McDowell, second unit director, was here as well. That is really going at a lick, and you have to be careful and you have to be prepared, and we're working a sort of continuous day a lot of the time, so the cast don't return to their trailers, and we've created a company of friends doing amazing things, and it's a really fantastic experience.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
I mean, from my point of view, the characters and making sure that the journeys that the characters embarked upon in the desert were continued in Italy. And I think this will be true as we go through the different phases of the war. It's more intense, you know, the pressure's more, they've also accumulated more horror as they go through. So it's just keeping, from my point of view, it's keeping the characters true to who they are in terms of how it looks. That's Stephen.
Yeah, well, we went for scale and we embraced what we had in Croatia for Italy. But my biggest memory is of slightly misunderstanding a scene. It goes back to character and the writing. And there's a scene in episode 3 where Paddy Mayne is unravelling. Definitely, he's going the wrong way and he's trying to pull himself back. And it's a 1.5-page scene, and we didn't quite have enough time for it. And it's so important. And Paddy's talking to his men, they're about to do a little operation at night time, and he's washing his feet. He's washing his feet when he should be preparing to go into battle. And suddenly, he starts reciting his poetry. And halfway through, he forgets. And Paddy complains that the war is knocking his memory sideways and he can't remember the things that he loved. And it was a really important scene for all of us, I think, because we got to a depth that we didn't know was there, and I was knocked sideways by Jack's performance. It's a really simple scene. It's five or six of the crew just there and just observing Paddy, and it sort of sums up the middle of the series. And from that point, he does something incredible about 5 minutes later. And from that point, every step that Paddy takes, you are just wanting to help him. You're wanting him to be the Paddy that you all know. You're wanting him to regain what he had, find the composure again. And we go to an intense place. But it's a really simple scene, and it just touched me. It was a really hard performance. The light was going, and then we put the camera right in Jack's face and try and get a sort of sense of sort of PTSD in his head by using a shallow focused lens. And he started this poetry and then he forgot it. And it's about character, and the scale of character and the scale of personality was really important.
I was lucky enough to have seen that scene, and it is extraordinary because it's that one line of how the war has stolen the poetry from him, and yeah.
I guess it just kind of resonates a lot of things, just like an ordinary sort of man of that time. He doesn't pretend to be anything else. I think he kind of prides himself of being very ordinary, very hands-on, and there are tons of men like him. The common man, I think, which he's almost in protest about being. So it was just kind of, I think, mainly just important to try and embody the period, and just that study of older blokes, just try and embody that. And obviously there is the way he's written. He's got an amazing command of language, and just leaning into that with copious amounts of dialect lessons. But any one person, I think, like you Seamus Heaney's, Martin McGuinness, just it's a beautiful way to speak in the north of Ireland, and so they were sort of loose kind of influences as well, but not any one person, to be fair. Just a kind of trying to stay true to that period first and foremost. I don't know that I do, to be honest. I'm a wreck. It's a nice holiday, I think, after, isn't it? It's a nice trip abroad.
It's perspective, isn't it? It's perspective of knowing that we're actors performing this thing, whereas like there were many people lived this and sacrificed their lives, and you know, yeah, we can go home to our families. We live the lives that we do now because of the sacrifices that all these men that we're trying to depict and tell their stories and do justice to because of their sacrifices. So I think that makes it easy to compartmentalize and go home. Having said that, I didn't blow anything up. So.
Oh no, how did you think?
Yeah, Quill's exactly right. You know, he's exactly right. And I wasn't there in those scenes, so I can't really speak to that. That's Jack.
It's really annoying, isn't it?
They're terrible. It's them. It's not me. No, I think, you know, I, to be honest, I really can't say anything more that Bill's just not said. But it is, you know, having some perspective and.
Yeah.
I think there's some nice touchstones that we have. Kudos and BBC have been very strong in keeping connected to the families and to the real people, and some of those relationships have really kept going throughout the first two series. And what we actually have on the boat, we have some of Almonds's grandchildren.
Oh wow!
Great grandchildren. Hello. And I think that's a very positive thing in terms of some of the cast keeping in touch with the people that they're playing and being able to, you know, engage that way, but also step back. You know, Sofia goes through some serious business in episode 4, and but we all sort of get through it together, and you know, it's a very strong company, and we're very respectful of the stories that we're telling, but we can also step back, go to a nice hotel in Croatia, jump in the sea together and have a beer.
That's also important.
In series 1, we have a scene with David Stirling, who's lying in bed, wounded, and his mother sends him a grouse fella, and he actually says that what the SAS must become is poachers. So forget the rules of gentlemanly behaviour. We're going to take the birds on the ground. We're not going to wait for them to take off. We're going to blow up the aeroplanes on the runways. And that is based on things that David Stirling did say about, really interestingly, exactly what you're saying, learning the lesson of poachers, that we must become not gentlemen but poachers. And that was one of the main creeds of the SAS. So you're absolutely right.
All that's left for me to do is please give a warm round of applause to our wonderful panel.